What is going on, guys? We are back playing some more Surviving with Create 0.3, and today we are going to be going over mob farming. Now thankfully Create offers a very simple trick to make mob farming way easier than it otherwise should be, and that is the ability to pick up and relocate any mob spawner located anywhere in the world using the cart assembler. Now we went over the cart assembler a couple episodes ago, but we're going to be going over it again today and how you can use it to pick up the mob spawner and relocate it. And then we're also going to be going over a very simple XP farm that you can make around the mob spawner, whether it's skeletons or zombies, so that you can get all the XP you could possibly want and some drops to go alongside that. So we really don't need that much to pick up the spawner today, but obviously we have a couple additional resources that will be needed if you want to make the create specific XP farm. So on the left here, we have everything that you're going to need to pick up the mob spawner and then place it back down. So like I said, really not that much. The first thing you're going to need is a minecart, the cart assembler, a lever, and a single rail. Alongside that, you will need to also have a wrench to pick up the minecart contraption, but chances are you probably already have that if you're going to go about doing this, because that should be one of the first things you make when you're playing with Create. And then alongside that, if you want to make the Create specific XP farm, you will need 11 mechanical belts, 23 shafts, a windmill bearing, a sail frame, a rotation speed controller, a large cogwheel to go along with it, a button and some redstone dust, a campfire, an encased fan, 1 sequenced gear shift, 8 encased chain drives, 3 hoppers, 2 chests, and 2 gearboxes. I also have a couple miscellaneous things like an additional gearbox and a couple shafts just to make sure that we can get the rotational power properly in there, but I believe this should be pretty much everything. So we can grab all of this stuff out of here, and then we're going to take the journey over to one of the 2 skeleton spawners that you can see I have waypoints on that are actually relatively close to the base. So I'm going to hop over to one of those, and then we can go over how you can actually pick up the spawner. So I made my way over to one of the skelly spawners. This one is the one that's a little bit more intact of the 2. The other one was pretty much decimated by world generation, so I figured this one would be better for an example on how to do this, but we got it all lit up so we have plenty of time to work with this and don't need to worry about being interrupted. But really it's not that difficult to do, and you really don't need that many things as I just talked about. So all we're going to do is mine directly below the spawner itself, and then we're going to place down a rail so that we can place down the cart assembler, and then we'll put down the cart assembler on the rail, then put down a minecart, and then we just need to mine another block out on the side of the cart assembler to put down a lever, flip the lever. Now this is attached to the minecart, and then we're just going to wrench the minecart, and you can see just like that, it is gone. Then we can mine all this stuff back up, and now if we were to put down the minecart contraption, we'd be able to either break the minecart and the spawner would stay where it is, or we can put it down again with the cart assembler, and because it's not going to have power, it'll remove the block from on top of the minecart, and we'll be good to go that way too. So now we should be all set to head back to the base, relocate this thing wherever we want it to set up our farm, and start getting some XP. Okay guys, so we are now back at the base and we should be good to start setting this up and getting some XP and drops. And off camera I made this nice little area over here for us to do our setup in. Obviously this looks beautiful. I'm sure you guys will compliment me on my building style in the comments, as you always seem to do. But don't worry, off camera I will make this look a lot nicer. I wanted to keep it wood so it would match the base, but obviously it looks disgusting right now, so I'll be adding a lot of stuff on the outside once we have this set up inside working, but obviously the inner workings are the most important part for the video, so I thought we'd keep it simple until we get that done. So we're going to come in here, and this is going to look very similar to a vanilla mob spawner trap that you may be familiar with, or at least the main room portion of it. And this is going to be a 9 by 9 by 8 room that we will put the spawner down in and collect all the mobs in this area right over here to do the killing. Now we're going to do this using a belt system. If you couldn't already tell from the requirements for today's episode, I will say that you could do this either using the vanilla method of water or using a different create method of using encased fans, in which case you'll have to use regular fans and nozzles. I believe Polart has a great video on that kind of setup, but I believe this is a lot more efficient as it uses way less stress units to get as efficient of a movement of the mobs to the killing area. And what I mean by that is the belts can move a lot faster for a lot less stress units simply because of their requirements, and that the longer they go, it doesn't actually require more stress capacity. It's just the RPM times 1 for a belt in general. So we're going to be using the belts, but again, you can do it with whatever setup you'd like. I just think these look really cool, and you can make a move super quickly when it comes to getting the mobs over here if you're willing to set up a couple extra things for power generation. But once you have the room set up, all we're going to do is put down all the shafts right along the back wall of it. So that should be 9 right there. And then we're going to put down another 9, not against the other wall, but 1 away from it. So we're going to click them all down right here, another 9. And then we are going to put belts from one to the other. And it's really annoying to do this. I wish there was some way to like mass put down belts, but unfortunately there isn't as far as I'm aware. So we got to manually click each one in, and now we have this whole setup right here good to go. And these will be moving the mobs over to this side, and then the goal is to get them into this 3 long killing area right here. So all we're going to do is put down shafts right here, and we need to rotate them so that they are bringing the belts into the center here. So we'll put these down over here too. And then we're going to put mechanical belts on each of these. So now if we get all these belts running in the proper directions, and that's really the key thing right there, is they need to go in the proper direction, but all the mobs will end up here in the center. So now that we have the internal belt system set up, we need to supply it with some rotational power so it'll actually start running and carry those sweet, sweet skeletons to us so we can get some XP. And to do that, we're going to come out back here and just bust our way in to the back of this setup. I know I need to get an axe because we use wood so much. The last one broke and I never made a new one, but we're going to bust our way into the setup and get access to these back belts right here, and then just use some shafts to pull out so we can supply rotational power to it very easily. And we're going to be using the windmill bearing and sail frame setup today for rotational power. Now the reason we're doing this might be kind of obvious if you guys saw the windmill episode, but either way, I'm going to give a quick recap. But basically there's 2 main things. First off, the sail frame can replace any sail block without requiring wool, so it's a cheaper alternative that actually doesn't look that bad. But obviously, if you guys couldn't tell, we're not really even concerned with appearances for this setup so far, so why should we start caring now? Regardless though, we're also only going to be using 1 because the windmill is threshold based, so putting 1 down, 2, 3, all the way up to 15 isn't going to make a difference in the amount of stress capacity or RPM we get. Once we get to 16, it'll flip over and give us more, but I'm not really looking to make a big windmill for this right now, especially because it's really just moving belts, so it's nothing that should really take that much stress capacity. They don't need to move that quickly. So we're going to put down a rotation speed controller and a large cogwheel to start out, and then we're going to be able to adjust the speed however much we want. So we'll put those down and then make sure I put this down properly below it. I'm not going to change the RPM just yet. We can adjust that later. But then we're going to pull out 1 off the side of this. And I got to get a vertical gearbox so that we can put down the windmill bearing and the sail frame. I know I have one in here somewhere right there. Okay, so the vertical gearbox can go right here. And then we can build our way up with some dirt just so we can put it down on top of this. Put down the windmill bearing, put down the sail frame on top, and then right click with an empty hand, and you can see we have 512 stress capacity to work with here, and this is able to spin at 16 RPM. We can even put it up to 28 without overstressing it, but obviously we still have some things we need to hook up over there, so we'll turn this back down for the time being. But now we should have all the rotational power we need for today's episode, so a very simple and effective setup for, anything you need to power. It's way easier than doing an encased fan and will give you way more stress capacity, so definitely a good option to go with. Now though, we need to get power for these 2 belts right here that are going to be carrying mobs into us. And also a quick note, these are already going in the correct direction, but if they're not, then you can simply flip the rotation speed controller to the negative version of the speed that you currently have it at, and it will reverse the rotation. So obviously you want to check that these are going to bring the skeletons or whatever mob you're farming to the actual killing area and not pull them away, pretty much defeating the entire purpose. But now we're going to do the same setup on both sides to get rotational power to these 2 sets of belts. And so all we got to do is break in again right over here. Again, really regretting not having an axe, but we're going to bust in on these blocks right here, and then these two right here on the front. And we are going to be using our chain drives and a gearbox so that we can get these rotating in the proper direction. So we'll pull out the chain drives and we're going to run those alongside right here. And then we are going to put down a horizontal gearbox right here. And this should be rotating again in the correct direction. So dropping items in here along with mobs. And then finally, all we got to do is set up this side in the exact same way. And the rotation should also be good. So really quick, just so you know, as long as you get the rotation proper for these main belts pushing from the back, if you set up the sides like this, both of these will also properly be pushing into the center, just to make your life a little bit easier. You're not going to need any additional gearboxes. So we can do chain drive, third one, another gearbox. And again, this should push right into the center and we can get the extra wood that fell on it. So now everything gets brought right in here, which is great. But we need to do the little killing area. And I say killing area, but really it's the damaging area, specifically because we want to bring the health of these skeletons or zombies down to make it easier to kill them. Because if we want, we could punch them, or we don't want to have to use multiple swings of the sword to kill them. We want to make sure that they're basically on the brink of death before we get at them and make it a lot easier. So to do that, we're going to be using an encased fan, blowing a campfire across them to light them on fire and then get them to very low health. So if we're going to have them landing right in here, then we're going to want to put down all the stuff that we have in here again so we can get accurate representation. They're going to land right here. And we want to be able to blow this hot air across them so we can set the fan up. We can do it right. Now we can do it on the bottom one right here. I don't think it really matters. But we can put it right here. So we're going to put a campfire down and then we are going to put an encased fan and we just want to flip it so that it is pointing in this direction. And what we're going to do is basically blow the hot air from this across. It'll light them on fire and then we're going to let them burn down to very low health. And to do this, we're going to want to put down a sequenced gear shift on the back of this encased fan. And what the sequence gear shift does is it allows us to set up a sequence of events and then stop based on a redstone signal. So we're going to set this to turn and then we're going to hold down shift and scroll up to 360. Then we're going to set this to turn again. And we can put it to anywhere from like 90 to 180. We can try out 180. You're going to want to possibly adjust this depending on how low you want to get all the skellies. You might potentially kill one or two accidentally, but then we're going to have it at end and we'll be okay. So what this will do is give us a 360 degree turn and then a 180 degree turn of the encased fan, allowing it to catch them on fire, hurt them a couple times before stopping blowing this hot air across them. Then they'll finish burning and should be left at very low health. Now, this was a really cool idea that I saw in Polart's video. He used 3 of these. You don't really need 3. It'll hit all of them in this area with just 1 blowing across like this, so you should be good. But what we're going to have to do is get a redstone signal to this so we can have a button put down that'll go directly into this. And we also need to get some rotational power. So a really easy way would just be to bring down from these chain drives to this. And it's occurring to me now that I had set this up to put this up 1 higher. Okay, so I moved the setup 1 higher just because I didn't feel like making an additional encased chain drive, and this is how I had actually set it up when I was testing it, but it's the same thing. We got the sequence gear shift right like this, and then all we're going to do is supply the rotational power by putting a shaft right here connecting it, and now we need to get the redstone signal to the sequenced gear shift. So we're going to want to put some stuff down here so we can get a button to connect to this, and we can just build out right here. And we can put the button down just like this and put down our 3 redstone and they'll carry it right in there. So we just put a button down right over here. And now if we press this, we should be able to see it blowing out. So it is blowing in the correct direction. If you weren't able to, you could simply reverse the direction in the sequence gear shift, which is awesome. But again, if you have this whole setup going from the start in the correct direction for these back ones, well, then if you hook it up like this, this will also be blowing in the correct direction. So now everything pretty much should be good to go, other than getting the skelly spawner in there and making this look not like total disgusting garbage. So one thing we can take care of right now, and that is going to be putting the spawner inside there. So let's get out some dirt and build up here, and we'll just break our way in. We actually probably want to go up a few more, like right here, so we can get in there at the correct height, and then we'll build across, put this down, and get all these torches out of here too. So I'm going to break the torches as we're going. This is always the most nerve-wracking part of this. If I can get access to, I got both the ones on the side. If I can get the one in the back there, I do want to break these too. Now we want the mob spawner to go directly below this. So the way that we will do that is by building up one. No, we actually want to keep it right where it is. We want to put down a rail, and then we can do this by also just putting down the cart assembler in the contraption or breaking the cart. So we can just put it like this, and because this has no signal, when we put down the contraption, it's going to place the spawner, so we need to be very careful. But there we go, and you can see a skelly already spawned, so now we can just break these, and I should have my shovel on my bar, but we'll just let the items fall all the way down into the killing area and collect them there, and we can cover this back up, and everything should now be good to go. So the skelly should have landed down here along with our items. Yep, there we go. And we can collect them, and then we can actually test the button out too, and we can watch it now lights this guy on fire. And okay, so it brings him a little bit too low, so all we have to do is come over here and let's adjust this down to 90, and then we can test on this guy. So now we can blow it. Oh, he was already low health. Well, we got to wait for another guy before we can test it out again, but all you got to do is some quick adjustments to this. But now something we can also do is put down the item collection with a single chest, simply because we want to make sure that we are not going to get overloaded with items landing in here. So here, let's test this while we have these guys here. No, it goes a little bit too long there. So again, let's reduce it. Maybe we can just get rid of this one altogether. Let's put this one on end and see if 360 is enough. It's not going to be enough for the armored guy, but it might be enough for these guys. Oh, yep, we can see it gets them down pretty low. You could even put it shorter if you wanted to, but again, it's just going to take some trial and error. And you can see we're getting a nice collection here, but when we kill these guys, the items are going to be an issue. So we're going to put down some hoppers right below where they are to collect their items and put them into this chest. And we're going to run into a little issue where these guys are very clearly going to be trying to get at us. So I want to make sure that we get this down properly, but we're just going to put a hopper down like that onto the chest, and then over here put a hopper down into that middle one, and then again right here into that middle one too. So the mobs will land on top of this, and then all their stuff can get collected and put into this chest when we kill them. So, and then we can just put down like a piece of wood right here to make it look, it doesn't look great, but it's fine. So now when we kill this guy, he should put his drops right into this chest right here, and we can collect all the bows, arrows, and bones, maybe do some cool farming with this. And we have this killing area over here. And one cool thing is if you just want to turn this into a drop farm, you can either make it so that this is always blowing when they get in here, or you can just increase the time that it's turning so that when you hit the button, it kills all of them. But obviously that's up to you if you want it to be an XP farm or you want it to be an item farm. Obviously if you got zombies, there's not really any benefit to killing those other than for XP. But if you got skellies, maybe you want some arrows, maybe you want some bones, I don't know. And of course, this should be able to work with blaze too. You can move those spawners as well. So if you want some blaze rods and stuff like that, this will work too. I just wouldn't recommend you make it out of wood because if you got fire spread turned on, you're going to have a bad time. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed today's episode. Hopefully you will put it to good use. And obviously, if there's some really cool spawners because you have other mods in the game and you can transport those too, definitely let me know if you make some cool setups. But that is going to be it for today, guys, and I will talk to you later.